Hi, in this video I want to go over the concepts of angles and lines. I'm going to give you the main concepts that I want you to write in flashcards because that's a way to commit them to memory, and when you have problems you can go back to those flashcards and have the information readily available. So I'm going to go over the concepts and show you where you see this star. It's where you should be looking at. You should be doing a flashcard. So starting with the main concepts here, um, let's just discuss when we're talking about geometry, we're going to be talking about points, and those points, when they come together, they form lines and shapes. So a point, it is a location in space, has no length, no width. And it can be represented like a letter. Now, when you put a series of points together, it will form a line, and this line continues in both directions. So it doesn't have a beginning, doesn't have an end, it just continues to infinity. You can label a line by naming two of the points through which the line passes, and then extend the line through those 2 points like I'm showing here, and represent it and end the line with an arrow. This arrow signifies that the line continues, and that is a true line. And it can be represented with AB with a line on top, or you can just name it line AB. So that just represents the line that crosses the 2 points. Now you can also have a line segment, and this is when you have 2 points which defined the line, the segment. In other words, it doesn't go beyond the points like in the line, so it's just a section of the line. So that's why it's called a line segment. Um, a ray, however, it's a combination of the two. Has a specific beginning point, and it continues in the opposite direction, goes through a second point, and it continues with an arrow. So think of it as half of a line. So starts at one point and continues to the other side. So you'll see the arrow signifying that continues to infinity, as I'm marking here. The next concept is parallel lines. Parallel lines are those that never cross each other. They will maintain a same distance between the two. So you can actually see the distance is the same. Doesn't matter where you measure it. Think of train tracks. They will never cross paths. It doesn't matter how much you extend them, they'll never cross paths, and that's a parallel line. Now, lines that are intersecting are two lines that have a common point. So they just touch each other. So as you can see here, the point H is where the lines actually are meeting, are intersecting. So think of a street. An intersection is where with two streets cross, or multiple streets cross for that matter. Perpendicular lines are lines that form 90-degree angles. So if you think of the letter L, capital L, it will form a letter. So in picture this L as a square. I'm going to represent it as a little, almost like a little box, to represent that the lines are perpendicular. So it's exactly forming that perfect square. Okay. Another definition is angles. Angles are they form when two lines or two line segments or two rays intersect. And the opening, think of it as the opening where those two lines intersect. Um, it will form an angle. So in this case is this. This is the angle. The point where the lines intersect are called the vertex, And we label angles in several ways. We can measure, for example, in this diagram here, where we have the line ML intersecting with MN. They form the angle LMN. Notice that the sign for angles is almost like an L with there's not a straight L, but it's like almost like a closing L. Another way to symbolize it is almost like a um, less than with a parentheses across, and the letters L, M, N, where the M is the point in the middle. So usually M, the middle letter represents the intersection point. Or you can also call it just angle M, or like this, angle M. So angles are always going to be represented this way. And when you measure angles, angles are going to be measured in degrees. And a degree is represented like a little, just like in temperature, with a little O, um, superscript, so ahead, above the letter. And so when you have a full circle, that's 360 degrees. So think of it as if this is the middle of the circle. If I were to draw a line to the end, to the circle itself, that will be called the radius. We're going to talk about that later, but the radius, and if I measure the line, the angle that forms the entire circle, that would be 360 degrees. Now, angles would be measured according to the portion of the circle they represent. So if the full circle is 360, half of circle, this would be 180, okay? And a quarter of the circle would be half of 180, which is 90 degrees. This is 90 degrees. Make sense? Now, let's talk about what the types of angles. Notice that I'm giving you this flashcard symbol in all of the slides because I want you to make those flashcards so you will remember. Part of passing this test is as a new language, you need to learn the terminology. So let's talk about what the right angle is. The right angle would be, like we said, a perpendicular line that forms like the letter L. So it's a perfect square, 90 degrees, a quarter of the turn. A right angle will always be represented as this little square. And this is very, very important because when you are doing, when you're solving triangles, usually they will have a right angle. And you need to make sure that it has this little square, meaning it's a 90-degree angle. Then you have the acute angles, which are less than 90 degrees. So like in this diagram I'm showing you here, this is probably, I don't know, 60 degrees, maybe less, maybe 50 degrees, but think of it as the L closing, okay? Those are acute angles. Now, obtuse angles are the ones that are greater than 90 degrees. So in this case, this would be the obtuse angle. So obtuse greater than 90, acute less than 90. So in this case, this is probably, if this was, I don't know, 60 degrees, then remember that the straight line would be 180 degrees, right? So this angle, the obtuse angle, will be 120 degrees. Then we have the reflex angles, and these angles are greater than 180. So in other words, greater than um, greater than 80 and less than 360. So it's called reflex because it's like the opposite of what we would be calling the angle. So if, let's say this is 60 degrees, so the rest of the angle would be 300 because total should add up to 360. I hope this makes sense. The next concept I want to give you is by the relationship with anothers. Now, all of these concepts, you guys need to understand it and memorize them because the questions I'm going to show you later are like that. So first is adjacent. You need to understand what adjacent means. What does it mean? Means that it's together, it's next to. So it share a common side. So this angle here is adjacent to this angle here. Okay. So adjacent just means they're together. Complementary are the angles that they assume that their measurement equals 90 degrees. So if they say two complementary angles, you know that adding the two together will be equal to 90. So they complement each other to form 90 degrees. And so let's say this is, let's just say this is 50 degrees, then this other side should be 40 degrees because together they add up to 90. The next important concept is supplementary angles. These are also very important. I would say out of all these terms, these complementary and supplementary are very, very important. The supplementary, they add their measurement is equal to 180 degrees. So let's say this is 60 degrees. If it's supplementary angle, that means that the rest to 180, which is 180 minus 60 degrees is 120. So this is the measurement of this other angle. Okay, so very important. Those two concepts are super important.